I was sitting in the living room when the television went quiet. Not because the show ended, not because the power went out, but because someone stood in front of the screen and pressed the button. I didn't look up right away. There are moments when your body knows what's happening before your eyes do. When you recognize the weight in the air. When you delay turning your head, just to enjoy the last second of peace. "Go to your room," he said. "This is my living room now." He didn't shout. He didn't whisper. He said it the way people do when they think something already belongs to them. I slowly lifted my eyes. My son-in-law stood there, holding the remote like a small trophy. Relaxed, confident. Already seated in comfort that wasn't his. I turned my head toward the kitchen. My daughter stood there, frozen, her phone clutched in both hands. She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't say a word. That silence hurt more than the sentence he had just spoken. People always imagine there was shouting. They expect anger. They expect tears. They expect a fight. But what they don't understand is this. When you've lived long enough, you learn that loud moments are rarely powerful ones. I didn't argue because I was weak. I didn't argue because I was afraid. I didn't argue because something inside me had already gone very quiet and very clear. I stood up. My knees protested. The chair creaked beneath me. He smirked. "Where are you going?" he asked. "At your age, you shouldn't wander around." I looked at my daughter one last time. She adjusted the grocery bag in her hand, as if an apple had shifted inside. That small movement told me everything. So I picked up my keys, and I walked out. The door shut behind me with a soft click. Not a slam, not drama, just finality. The night air was cool. The porch light flickered once before settling. I stood there for a moment, holding my purse, listening to the house behind me. The house I paid for. The house I cleaned every Saturday. The house where I buried my husband's ashes in the garden out back. And now, I wasn't welcome in its living room. I didn't cry. Not yet. I got into my car and drove. I didn't have a plan. I passed streets I knew by heart. Then streets I didn't. Storefronts with lights off. Restaurants closing for the night. Other people's lives continuing as if mine hadn't just cracked open. I parked near an empty shopping center and turned off the engine. The silence inside the car was different. Heavy. Unavoidable. That's when the memories started returning. Not the sentimental ones. The practical ones. When my husband died 15 years ago, people assumed I'd fall apart. Some brought casseroles. Some offered advice. Some waited for me to make mistakes. But grief didn't make me careless. It made me precise. I learned to read documents slowly, to ask questions quietly, to sign nothing I didn't fully understand. When the mortgage papers were updated, my name was the only one on them. When the deed was revised, my name was the only one printed there. I kept copies. I always kept copies. And my son-in-law? He never asked. He assumed. I stayed in that car longer than I planned. The seat was uncomfortable. My neck ached. But my mind was sharper than it had been in years. I realized something important that night. If I went back angry, I would lose. If I went back emotional, I would lose. But if I went back calm, prepared, and silent, everything would change. I returned home just after sunrise. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My daughter sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red, a cup of untouched coffee in front of her. "Mom," she whispered. "I didn't know what to do." I nodded. "I know," I said. That was the truth. She didn't know. And for the first time, I understood that her silence wasn't cruelty. It was fear. The knock came mid-morning. Firm. Professional. I opened the door. A man stood there in a crisp suit, holding a leather folder against his chest. Mrs. Evelyn Carter? Yes. I'm here regarding the property. Behind me, footsteps stopped. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Something in the air had already shifted. The man stepped inside. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't asked permission. And suddenly, the living room didn't feel like it belonged to my son-in-law anymore. It felt like it was remembering who owned it. And that's when I knew. The quiet part of this story was over. The man didn't sit down right away. He stood in the center of the living room, scanning the space slowly, as if the walls themselves were telling him a story. My son-in-law cleared his throat. "Who are you?" he asked, already annoyed. The man adjusted his glasses and opened the leather folder. "My name is Daniel Hayes," he said calmly. "I represent the legal interests connected to this property." Something in his tone changed the room. Not louder, just heavier. "There must be some mistake," my son-in-law laughed. "This is my house." The man didn't respond to him. He looked at me instead. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "may I proceed?" I nodded. That small nod did something I hadn't expected. My son-in-law noticed. And for the first time since I'd known him, he looked uncertain. The first document slid onto the table, quietly. "This is the current deed," Daniel said. "It lists one legal owner." He paused. "Evelyn Carter." My son-in-law leaned forward. "That's outdated," he snapped. "I live here. I pay bills here." Daniel smiled politely. Residence and ownership are not the same thing. Silence filled the room. The second document followed. "This confirms exclusive authority over occupancy decisions." Again, my name. I felt it before I saw it. My daughter lifted her head. Her eyes moved from the papers, to the man, to me. "Mom," she whispered, "you never told me." I didn't answer right away. "I didn't need to," I said softly. That sentence carried years inside it. My son-in-law stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You can't just throw me out." Daniel closed the folder. "Actually," he said, "that decision doesn't belong to you." He turned to me. "Mrs. Carter?" Every eye in the room followed his movement. I took a breath, and for the first time that morning, I spoke with certainty. "Yes," I said. "I'd like him to leave." There was no yelling, no threats, just reality settling into place. Daniel explained timelines, notice periods, legal obligations. My son-in-law's confidence collapsed quietly, like a chair missing one leg. "I didn't know," my daughter said again, louder this time. "I didn't know you were treating her like this." He turned toward her. "You're taking her side now?" She straightened. "No," she said. "I'm taking the truth side." That moment was worth every silent hour I had endured. As they talked, I realized something. All those times I stayed quiet, all those moments I didn't defend myself, they weren't losses, they were observations. I had been watching, learning, preparing. Silence hadn't made me small, it had made me ready. 2 weeks later, his boxes lined the hallway. He didn't apologize. He didn't need to. People who are forced to leave power behind rarely admit they lost it. The door closed behind him, this time, from the inside. The house felt different, not louder, calmer. My daughter and I sat at the same table one evening, sharing tea. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I know," I replied. And this time, I meant it. I returned to my green armchair, turned on the television, and smiled. Because the strongest thing I had done wasn't standing up and yelling. It was standing still and letting the truth arrive on its own. If someone ever makes you feel invisible, remember this. You don't always need to react immediately. Sometimes, silence is not surrender. Sometimes, it's strategy.